if somebody is listening to these tests that we did, my belief is very shortly before you get the ability to traverse the cosmos, if that is possible, you let off a nuke. Right? It's like, you've had kids. There's some stuff that happens right before they figure out how to break out of the crib.
That's part of UFO folklore,
I know.
too. Fat Man and Little Boy. That's a big part of UFO, that once they dropped those, that's when all the UFOs started appearing.
So the question is, the analogy I give, so I talked to Avi about the following thing. I am a fan of something I call the doubly scientific method. The usual scientific method makes a hidden assumption that it never voices, which is if we're going to study orcas, we assume that we are smarter than orcas. Or if we're going to study cephalopods, right, like an octopus, we think we're smarter. And what do? We disguise ourselves. We create artificial environments. We do all sorts of crazy things based on the fact that we're smarter than what we study, from everything from rocks to orcas. The doubly scientific method says, okay, assume that you're studying a rat in a maze, but you yourself are the rat in somebody else's maze. Now you have to look up the intelligence scale, not just down. And in the doubly scientific method, you have to assume that whatever is studying you is hiding from you the way you are hiding from your subjects. So if you see somebody in a duck blind, for example, and he's studying ducks, you understand that somebody may be hiding from you. And they might be able to use multiple dimensions of time. They might be able to cloak themselves and disguise themselves. Or for example, if you take microscopic UFOs, this cup has a radius of r and a circumference of 2 pi r. The disk that it spans is pi r squared in area. But if you look at this cup, it's much larger than pi r squared because we pushed it out. You could have a sphere where if you could cheaply engineer space-time, not through the Einstein field equations, but through the successor theory that recovers Einstein, you could have an entire stadium inside of a tennis ball. Just the way this cup doesn't blow your mind until you realize that its area is much greater than pi r squared. Why look for a giant floating thing in the sky? If you could bend space and time and you could play with the rulers the way I'm saying, I would put this in a tiny little profile.
Whoa. So we're only looking at it in terms of our understanding of the distance between objects, planets, gravity. We're looking at that. All that stuff where if it didn't exist, if somehow or another we lived in some contained environment and we had no concept of space whatsoever, and then we gained access to it, we would be unbelievably overwhelmed. If you lived in some sort of underground facility your entire life,
love this,
and then one day you got a chance to go outside and see the Keck Observatory in Hawaii in a clear night with no moon, you would be overwhelmed. You wouldn't be able to believe that the world was as big as it really was, or that the universe was as big as it was.
Yeah, it's an impedance mismatch. If you watch meteor showers the way my family does, it's religious. It's transformational. It's transcendent. Yeah. The problem, as you know, from the default mode network, right, is that mostly what your brain is doing is not communicating information, but screening. So we're talking about tapping in to a picture of the world that we are not, our brain is not prepared for the idea that time is multidimensional. That was the whole point of giving Lex another watch. We don't have a way to think about, I'll meet you at 5:15 and 12:30, according to two different scales of time. Or for example, time and space, if I'm correct, the 14-dimensional manifold that has all the quantum going on it, is split probably 7 and 7 dimensions because we have 6 extra time dimensions and 4 extra space. Add 6 to 1 and 3 to 4 and you get 7. So space and time are interchangeable. There's a duality between them. If we have a future, it means we can leave not the planet but the solar system. We can explore, the cosmos are traversable. If we can leave, anything else can visit. If you look at the entirety of the universe and you imagine that ultimately there are societies that destroy themselves because they get atomic weapons before they figure out how to leave. Some societies are smarter than that. and they'll be able to leave and colonize the cosmos. And for them not to be here would be madness. So if you've heard my analogy, there is an island in the Andaman chain called North Sentinel Island.
I know it well.
Yeah. North Sentinel Island is my model, potentially, of us. We are the North Sentinelese.
The 39 people that are direct descendants of people who left Africa 60,000 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know if there's 39 or 300. They kill everybody who lands there, essentially.
Yeah.
There's a story that we actually buggered them. An English person buggered them, which is why they don't want anyone landing.
Yeah.
There actually are some very weird videos where we throw them coconuts because coconuts don't occur in their island, and we actually have non-hostile contact. But the most important part of it is India. They do not know that they are claimed by something called India. And they don't know that they have a Fermi problem because India won't let anyone land unless they break the law. So the great filter of North Sentinel Island is a model for why don't we see anybody? Why aren't we clear? Does India exist at some sort of UFO level? Now, this is the doubly scientific method. You can laugh at it, but then would you laugh at the North Sentinelese who are smart enough to say, I wonder if there's another society that's screening everybody from landing here? Now, what happens on North Sentinel Island if you're watching it and all these people with loincloths or no loincloths and spears and arrows and stupid stuff, suddenly you start hearing radio signals coming out of North Sentinel Island. You're like, what? Then you see a little mushroom cloud in the northeast of the island. Then you see little boats that start exploring around that seem to be propelled internally. And you're like, are they burning the leaves? Have they invented internal combustion? Some point with the mushroom cloud, India says enough is enough. We cannot afford to let the North Sentinelese be treated as some sort of backwards people who don't have anything developed that scares us. That's a mushroom cloud, man. That's time to go in.
I see.
Right? So my claim is that you're not used to the doubly scientific method because there's been no reason to have a doubly scientific method. Do you believe that the orcas are smarter? Well, possibly. There aren't that many species that are really smarter than us. Look at all the shit we do. There aren't many that are dumber than us either. But not my point. Those sorts of models are what distinguish people who are going to get called crazy but aren't, because it's an obvious point. You have to account for this possibility that there's something called India up in the skies that doesn't want anyone landing here.
Right.
Who's monitoring what's going on, and they're not going to be infinitely patient if they exist.